The boy was born to the parents who were both in their second marriage. Each brought their own children to the family. The role of this young boy was to play out the firstborn son, the one to pass down the family name. The family's finances were unstable. Once during school lunch, a kid in class had pork and accidentally dropped a chunk as he opened his lunchbox. The boy had never tasted meat in his life, so he picked out the pork, rinsed it with tap water, and slipped right into his mouth. That was a good lunch and a satisfying day. When they're poor, they lived a rough life. When they're wealthy, they made a good living, but the father would take the money and lose himself in the world and the love of other women. The family was content when the father was making money, but it was the opposite when the father wasn't. The boy came to the conclusion that money is the key to happiness. If only they had money, Dad and Mom would be happy and love each other. The boy liked art when he was in school, but he chose to study business instead. He grew up and got a job in an American trading company where he held on to for over 30 years. Because he knew this job would in the future provide a good living and education for his children, so that they wouldn't have to labor as hard as he did. This boy grew into a promising young man in the company. He was a hard worker with vision, a witty man with popularity. Then a new girl came to work in the office. Several guys were after her, but this young man stood out from among them. They began seeing each other regularly. However, the girl's mother was traditional, embarrassed by her daughter so frequently seeing a young man without the bond of marriage. The elders of both families were urging the marriage to happen. The young man loved her enough to marry her, while the girl could see him leading and providing the family. Here came the marriage, the business of two families. Three years after the marriage, the first grandchild was born to the family. Though she was not a boy, her grandfather was still very pleased with her. The grandfather had two other grandsons before the girl, but they were born by his daughter, so they didn't inherit his last name. To him, they were just another person's grandchildren. The role of this little girl was to play out the firstborn grandchild. The proof of this family name had been passed down. The grandfather treasured her so dearly that no one in the family was allowed to punish her, not even her own father. The grandfather had a stroke late in his life. Soon after the stroke, the grandfather passed away. The family, as a result, began to raise the girl with more discipline. The father expected the girl to be well-behaved and follow his rule. For example, he demanded that she go to bed on time, but she constantly failed to do so. One night, the father caught her still watching TV late at night. So he grabbed a stick and spanked the girl furiously. The stick was chipped and it cut the girl's skin. Blood welled out through the skin from several places. For the first time, both the father and the girl experienced the power of discipline. The mother and the father had many arguments when the girl was growing up. The father would hang out with his friends after work and forget to call home. The mother would feel alone and left out. The cycle kept repeating itself until she couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to teach her husband a lesson. The mother patted her belongings, then asked her daughter, while the girl was held tightly in her father's arms, whether she wanted to stay with her father or go with her mother. The girl yelled and told her mother that she was going with her, but her body was pinned by her father's powerful hands and she couldn't move at all. The father and the girl used to have fun together. They drew pictures and went to museums on the weekends. The father read her the story of Little Red Riding Hood before bed. After the second daughter was born, the father had to work harder and longer. Instead of taking the girl out on weekends, the father chose to stay home and rest. The story of Little Red Riding Hood was never read by the father again.